welcome back to another episode of On Repeat, the podcast with me, Hattie Winter.
And me, Ellie Rashid. So it's really exciting this week because we have Naomi Johnson with us, who is a songwriter based in Brighton. She's hugely passionate about musical theatre, and as her friends have said, she is heart-wrenching, sit by the window kind of cry ballad thing, which I kind of I think is such a beautiful description and something I think we can all relate to in our own way, whether it's sort of sitting on the train and watching those sort of raindrops fly like teardrops, you know, that kind of thing, I guess. But she's been writing songs for over 10 years and has written for and worked with various publishing houses, artists and charities such as Sport Relief 2020.
That it's simple, know if you can. It's so simple. I've wasted too many moments to count. Not saying you turn my life upside down. I was lost, didn't know I was lost, hadn't realized.
So, how does it feel, Naomi, having all of that read out to you in the third person?
Mixed emotions. I feel like a little bit of a fraud because, yeah, I've been writing for 10 years, but when you look at what I was writing 10 years ago, it's just like, it's not great. It's definitely not good enough to sit by the window and cry to. Although if I listen to it back now, that's exactly what I would be doing. So,
Crying. It depends what kind of crying, I guess.
yeah.
What do you think makes them kind of embarrassing? Because that's such a common thing. We spoke to Brooke Bentham about this as well when she read out her old lyrics and found them embarrassing. And I definitely have the same thing. I think Nina Fine, I think actually she liked her old songs.
Oh yeah, hers was quite like mature.
Profound.
Everyone else's was definitely like not.
Yeah.
In a good way.
But what do you find it kind of like embarrassing about your old tunes then?
Yeah, good question. I think I don't want to be that person that is like, oh, it's so embarrassing. Oh, stop. But I do think, I think there's definitely a place where like there's no point looking back at old songs and being like, oh, I would have changed this, because it is like a process, you know, you grow every song you write. Well, that's the plan at least. But so I do want to be that person that's like, yeah, it was bad, but it's where I am now that's important. But if you really go back, it's just like, I mean, I must have been like 12, 13 singing about wanting to hold hands with a boy or about how amazing butterflies are. Like, it's not great. It's really not great.
Do you have any of the lyrics? You don't have to share them.
Do I have lyrics? I'm going to say no for the sake of my integrity. But I don't think you'd want to. I think you would be cutting this bit out if you did hear it. So. But yeah, not my finest hour, let's say.
It's funny though, because so many of us kept diaries when we were younger, and the thought of looking back at them, depending on how long ago it was, is really cringeworthy. But then I've had diaries I've revisited from, say, I don't know, me being 8 years old, and I actually find them really endearing. Just to see, like, I don't know, like I would have found it cringy if I was like 12.
Right.
Do you get what I mean? So I wonder if
Totally.
you will look back on those songs and be like, you know.
Potentially. Yeah, I think if there's a bigger gap in my skill between where I was then and where I will be, like if I get progressively better at writing that I can look back and find it funny, now I'm just like, oh goodness, I hope I've gotten better since that age.
Oh, bless. If you were looking at your kind of music on a timeline, so back then was like the beginning, and where you are now is where you are now. What do you think was like the turning point of when your music maybe did start to mature or sound different?
Interesting. I think because at first I wanted to do the whole artist thing. I think I was really passionate about that, and kind of didn't know that there was a place to be a writer and be behind the scenes, which is like perfect for me. It's exactly what I want to do. But at that time I was like, yeah, I'll be the next Ed Sheeran. Let's go. That's easy, right? So I think because I definitely define myself as quite English and quite awkward, and I was crapping myself for this, so you'll see. But I think I kind of played into that a little bit. So not the lack of maturity, but almost the honesty and I guess there is a line between being childish and being blatant about it, in terms of like lyrics that you don't need to know. I'm trying to think. I wrote a song called You Are My Genre, and the first line is, I'm playing in C because it's the easiest key. And I mean, that's just like, bad writing. And what's ironic is the song was in B, so I'm a fraud. It wasn't... But yeah, no, I think turning point wise, it's when I decided, okay, maybe I don't want to be an artist. Maybe that's not the thing that I want to do. And I started looking into more musical theatre stuff and stuff that I'll happily say, like, it's not cool, it's not trendy music, but it's great. I love it. It's like cheesy as anything, which is kind of the path that I'm down now, which is really fun. I think there's a line to be like, okay, don't make it too cheesy, and I think I can joke about being not cool and like, oh yeah, my music's not cool, but actually there's a little bit inside of me that does die when I think about that. So,
oh no,
just because, cool. Well, yeah, I think it's cool in that it serves its purpose as a cheesy musical theatre song, but it's not necessarily something that you're gonna, I don't know, drive late night drives to, I guess. Yeah, no, I think the turning point was definitely when I decided, right, okay, let's not do the artist thing. What else can I do? I went to Leeds College of Music for a year, not even that, a term and a half, let's say, and started, at that point, I was like, okay, I need to sort out the plan because I don't have one right now. And it was at that point that I started writing songs for kids and for schools, which I guess was kind of like turning point 2.0. So it's kind of gone back and forth, a bit of a zigzag, and honestly, I feel like I'm still waiting for another turning point, which I'm hoping everyone else feels the same. Is that a normal feeling?
Definitely, yes. That's a collective hope and wish for a turning point, for sure.
Especially when times are 2020. Oh gosh, 2021 now. Yeah. But yeah.
I think that's normal though, isn't it? To just, especially as a musician, to just constantly be looking at different avenues you can go through depending on your skill set. Do you feel like there's a lot of crossover between writing children's songs and musicals?
Big time. I think, and that's great. I think it's a good thing in that I'm in my little bubble of like skill set, I guess, in terms of being really emotive and being really clear. And then you get the really niche bit where it's musicals for schools, and that's just like the dream. However, it's a hard one to get into, and I feel like whilst I'm establishing myself in that world, if you look at the pop world, it's almost like there's no crossover, which is a tough thing it's hard to feel like, oh yeah, I can do this, but what if I want to jump ship at some point? What if the money's over there? Or what if I'm passionate about that or whatever? But I think even increasingly in the last year, I've noticed with pop music, it's so much more, there's a self-consciousness about lyrics now and an honesty that is really nice, and I think that's definitely, it's maybe not stemming from musical theatre, but there are parallels. So there's hope yet for me to write some pop tunes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I also think if you do think about the parallel between like musical theatre and pop, I think because everyone's obviously been stuck inside for such a long time, I think people are really gonna want to see shows, and I think there's nothing better than when you go to a live gig, and like it's really nice to see the band, but it's really nice to have a spectacle. I saw Drake whenever he was in London, and it's like, he's a solo artist. He does like R&B rap kind of stuff, really, and I think that's actually quite a difficult thing to hold the audience for such a long time as a single person. But he really put on a show and had that performative element, so I think we are going to see more of that, especially because I'm so excited, and we're also sick of being inside, and like he had drones and very cool stuff, and I think we'll see more like big things happening. Fingers crossed.
For sure. I think the thing you say about musicals as well is so true in theatre. It's something I'm definitely missing quite a lot recently. I mean, I know we all are, aren't we? And we were speaking about musicals, actually. It's funny we're speaking about musicals again. We sort of had a whole term where we didn't speak about musicals, but it seems to be such a fundamental part of people's musical development. And we've only spoken about it once with Lucy Liu, and it's so interesting that you mention it as well. I wonder, what were the musicals that really kind of got you going when you were younger?
Yes.
Yeah, good question. As well. Great question. Okay, I feel like judgment is coming if I say the wrong thing. I think I'm one of those people that, I know this isn't growing up, but I only really got into Hamilton when they recently released it on Disney Plus.
I could never get a ticket, and it was always too expensive, so I could only see it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I guess that's almost a turning point. Can I define it as that? And that, when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe musical theatre is cool. That's great. But in terms of growing up, kind of a mix of things. So my parents, they're also songwriters, which has been, I wouldn't be where I am today, if it wasn't for them. So they've been writing musicals and stuff that I've kind of just grown up with and would listen to like on repeat on a little like matte pink CD player where you click the track and you click repeat and I fall asleep to it. So that's definitely gone in somewhere. I think in terms of West End stuff, probably Annie, which I'm recently discovering that people don't know what that is. Like I thought that was like Holy Grail, but supposedly not. I think the music in Annie is unreal.
People don't know Annie? Like they don't know the story. They don't.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're like,
bizarre.
who's Annie?
Bizarre.
I know, I'm hanging out with the wrong people. There were a couple, I think. The most recent one, I'm not sure. I feel like they made all the songs into like kind of hip hop, which is sick. You can do that, but the original tracks definitely are like somewhere special in my heart. So yeah, definitely that. I'm trying to think. Billy Elliot's unreal. I think the music in that, but equally, that's like so many of those songs are like sit by the window and watch the rain fall and cry. So like right.
And also there, when you were talking about things being very British and kind of even uncool, those themes are so central to Billy Elliot, aren't they? That kind of like
big time.
Like thinking about the way that you sing is the way that I always think of actually a lot of male singers sing. Obviously you don't sound like a male singer, but the style is something that you would expect from like an indie male singer. Yeah. And I've actually never heard of a female that kind of encompasses that. But it's interesting, the Billy Elliot link and the uncoolness. Yeah. I actually wanted to bring it back to the sort of uncool, dorky thing, because some people are starting to wonder whether that's becoming really popular now, especially through TikTok. Definitely. Yeah, like, is it... like that Super Lonely song, like I was watching all like loads of music videos recently because I've realized that I mainly just listen to Spotify, and just seeing that, yeah, it looks like dorky is kind of in, and like I have no idea personally what defines cool. I really don't know. Maybe that's uncool or cool. I have no idea. But what to you defines cool and uncool? Like, how do you think of it? And also, yeah, what makes you think that you're uncool? And do you think it helps with your songs?
I almost do. I think some of it is a fear of coming across as arrogant, or a fear of like, I think being a creative, if you're not a creative, there's some kind of mystery behind it. So I'm always so worried if I say like, oh yeah, I'm a songwriter. People think like, oh, you sleep in the studio and you're like smashing out so many hits all the time. And I'm like, honestly, I'm writing songs about tractors. Like, honestly, that's what's happening right now for like kids in school. So some of it is like I want to be transparent and kind of give people a reality check of, yeah, it's and I love it, and I'm not playing it down at all. It's an amazing job and I wouldn't want to do anything else. But I hate the idea of coming across like, oh, I'm so superior, I'm a songwriter. Like, I just, some of it is like keeping it real and like, yeah, I'm kind of not cool, but if that makes me more likable and more endearing, then I'll take it, you know? It's hard though. I don't know if there's ever a place where, does anyone know what cool is? Because I feel like it changed too quickly.
I totally agree. And I also feel that I was looking at like language, and it's like, what word has maintained its kind of usage? And I feel like the only word is cool. Everyone says cool. Everyone knows what it means. Cool is the only cool word, if that makes sense. And everything else is just transient. And I don't know. And I also think with like sort of things like TikTok, I think the power of something like TikTok is also because it like does focus on the mundane and the boring. So you have like Instagram, which is like, this is my very like curated version of my life, and TikTok is like the actual life. So
behind the scenes,
the behind the scenes bit, definitely. So I think that all ties in.
I don't have TikTok, but now you've said that, I know you keep saying this, but now you've said it, that makes sense, because whenever anyone shows me any TikTok videos, I always look at them thinking, why is this so badly done?
Yeah, it's like the unfiltered real life version. I love it. It's great.
I feel like we need a little bit of that in life.
Oh yeah, definitely. We did go so far one way, didn't we? I mean, I think also you can see that in music. We went so far with like auto tune, and now it's sort of coming back again.
It's coming back.
Yes. What musical do you wish that you'd written? By the way, I saw you posted a picture on your Instagram saying what song do you wish you'd written, but yeah, what musical?
Yes. Oh, that's tough.
Would it still be like your Annie
That's
or your
so
Billy
hard.
Elliot, or would it be something? Because I wish I wrote Chicago. That's my
Oh,
not
yeah.
even a guilty
Great
pleasure. That's
answer.
my just pleasure.
Great answer. That's tough. I think, because I guess for context, my dream, where I want to be is like, oh yeah, writing for Disney. Oh yeah, writing for musicals. So
Ooh, yeah.
I think in terms of just West End stuff, in terms of having the skills to do something like Hamilton, like that's not, I almost can't say I wish I could because it's almost a joke. Like there's just no way, you know, like he's just a genius. And that's the kind of rap and the hip hop and all the infusions of genres is super clever, but also just like not my scene, but I couldn't even try. So part of me is like, yeah, that would be sick. That would be so cool to be able to do that. But I would say the more melodic, I think my strength definitely lies in melodies and emotive melodies. So I probably would say something like Annie. Or something that's been adapted from Disney. But equally, things like Mamma Mia, ABBA's tunes, never going to get old.
So
Love
good.
that stuff.
Timeless.
Yeah,
Did we just
absolutely. So in sync.
Yeah, so in sync. Oh my goodness, what's wrong? Yeah.
What would you write, Ellie?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask. And I
And
was
I knew
like,
you were going to try and escape the questions. I was like, I'm going to get it.
I was sort of panicking in my head because I was like, I don't know. But recently, my boyfriend and I were going through our favourite Disney songs one after the other. So he play his favourite or most memorable for whatever reason, and then I play my most memorable, and it just sort of went back and forth. And I think a lot of them that stick with you are not just the songs but the interludes for me. So like, okay, I don't know if this counts as musical actually, probably not, even though Matilda's a musical, but you know the film Matilda, that kind of intro music where she's growing up and going to the library, that do 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 do. I love like things like that. And I guess things like this, I really like the Disney classics that are almost like classical crossover. So I was watching a group called Voctive, and they're like an a cappella group. I don't normally like things like that, but this was so good. You should check it out. It's on YouTube, and it's a Disney princess medley. Sorry, medley. I was going to say melody.
Love that.
Medleys of melodies. That is a new tongue twister. And it's got like Someday My Prince Will Come, the really fluffy version. Again, I have no idea if that's even that's not really a musical, is it? And then like Colours of the Wind.
Any Mulan? Mulan was always
Of
my
course,
fave.
Mulan, Reflection, and what's the one from Little Mermaid as well? Like, oh, what is it?
Oh, Part of Your World.
That's it.
I don't remember
Straight on
anything
it.
from Little Mermaid at all. It's my least
Out of the
Really?
sea,
memorable
wish
one.
I could be. That one. Sound of Music, you know, yeah.
Oh
I don't know.
Sound of Music.
Sorry, I haven't even answered your question. I don't know. One of those.
Too many answers.
Back to you growing up, your influences. You mentioned your parents. And obviously you come from, we haven't mentioned this yet, but you come from a really talented, creative family. Obviously, I know you through your brother Dom, who is actually playing drums on our intro music. So shout out to Dom.
Is he?
Yeah, he is.
I feel like you didn't even know.
I didn't know that. I've heard that intro music so many times.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
So it's actually him.
That's so funny.
And it's years ago, and Sam as well, and Chloe, your sister-in-law. Like, it's just a very talented family, lovely parents. So talk us through all of that. How was it being the youngest in such a creative household?
Yeah, it's funny because I think job-wise, technically I'm the only one that's like pursuing the full-time music thing, which to me is kind of laughable because I look up at what they can do and it's kind of like, I know I'm biased because we're related, blah, 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 but they're great. And like, yeah. But no, it was so idyllic, honestly. Like, some of it's, I want to say that there's never really silence in our house, which is sometimes great. But you know, when you're just having those days, you need some peace and quiet and light a candle. But no, it was really great. I think they kind of push me to want to be better and want to do better. I know that in terms of music, especially Dom, and I'm sure you'll vouch for this, Ellie, he's really eclectic in terms of his music taste, which is so good. But I am the opposite. I am like, and I'm the same with Netflix or anything. I watch something, I like it, I'm going to rewatch that. Like, I'm fine with that, living a sheltered life. But and I know it's a bad thing, because in terms of writing, it's like the more you listen to, the more you'll soak up, the more you're going to be more diverse and everything. So I definitely think for Dom, it's such a inspiration to be like, if he's about, I have no idea what's playing, but it's great and I love it. And it's often something jazzy and something that you can't tap along to and it hurts your head, which is definitely going to make you somewhat more musical somehow. Yeah, yeah, big time. So yeah, I think what's really nice as well, they're both moved out, but when they come back, it's so nice to be able to reconnect over music and to hang out. Oh, that sounded so cringy.
No, it's beautiful.
It's kind of, it's this kind of unspoken thing that it's just something that we can do, and it's great. And also in terms of getting feedback, and it's tricky because again, they're biased because they're not going to say that it's crap, but yeah, it's really nice to be able to play. And my parents as well as writers, it's really nice to get feedback and feel like it's a safe space to be like, if you hated it, I'd like to think that you would say, change this, change that. So I think it's quite a unique position to be in, and I'm definitely super grateful for it.
Yeah. I suppose they.
So yeah, no, I love it.
I suppose they can be a bit more like, I guess, like with feedback, like constructive, as opposed to just like your friends that are going to be like, yeah, it sounds nice, but they don't know. They don't know what they're kind of listening to, or like what the kind of, I suppose, like brief is. They can only give you a certain answer. At least they're exactly from this. That. You're from the same world, even if you're living in like different countries.
Yeah, exactly that. No, it's great. I think it's always funny hearing feedback from friends of like, yeah, I really like it, and you were like, yeah, what do you like? And that's where the conversation kind of ends. That's
that bit with the and you're like, thanks.
Yeah, cheers for that.
Because your parents do have done such similar things to what you're doing now, and Out of the Ark is pretty well known. Do you ever feel like, because it's your kind of parents' area of expertise, do you ever clash with them on ideas? Did they kind of teach you how to sort of develop a formula for these songs, or do you really go with your own style? You say you've really got your own thing, whereas they might be, or was like Dom, for example, might be quite eclectic. Yeah, what's that like? That kind of working relationship with your parents?
That's interesting. Yeah, and I do co-write with them like quite a lot. It's not something that I necessarily overly advertise because I'm definitely scared that it looks like I'm sponging off them. But so I came back from uni and I was like, right, I wrote a song about a tractor, and that got published with them, and little bits and bobs here and there. And it got to the point where it was like, right, should we just get in the studio once a week and see what happens? And I'm up to that point, I was like the master of my songs, in that if I wanted to write a bad lyric, I wasn't going to stop myself from doing it. Whereas when you get in a room with your parents, it's like it's a different environment. I think it definitely took some getting used to. And I think what's cool but also tricky is that they have such a obviously the two of them, they have such a good balance between them in terms of skills and just how they work. They've been doing it for 30 years at least, so they've got it down, but it's almost an unspoken thing. Whereas I'm not good with that. If it's silent, if I'm like, what do you think of this? And no one says anything, I'm going to get annoyed. I'm going to be like, guys, are you listening to me? Whereas they're like ticking away and they're working on a different line. So it definitely, in terms of working with them, it took a lot of time, but it's brought on my skills by like tenfold. Because I think, like I say before, I'd come up with a lyric and I kind of wouldn't vet it. I'd be like, yeah, that'll do. It rhymes. Let's go. And especially for kids as well, you've got vocab, obviously obvious words that you can't use, but in terms of language and the simplicity of it, but also making it not sound like, I don't know, something that's just awful. So it's definitely a skill in itself. But yeah, I've learned so much over we've been writing together for nearly 4 years now. So, and that kind of progressed. We've done musicals together. We've done lots of different stuff. So it's been really fun. It's nice to feel, it's kind of a weird feeling. It's quite humbling to feel like I've grown up watching them as a team, killing it. And now to some kind of extent, I'm part of that team. And that's so, to think about it, it's so weird. It's so strange, but it's great. I love it.
So lovely.
Very, very
Shout
blessed.
Out parents.
Yeah.
I've been in
Yeah.
positions where I've written songs for children, for choirs, not in the same way as you, just, when I've been asked to do it and then we have a concert. And it's more so that I can tailor songs for the children that I know. And actually, your brother was playing at one of the gigs and he suggested, obviously being from your family, that I wrote a song about mental health. He probably doesn't remember this. And I was like, yeah, that's such a good idea. I can't remember having things like that when I was growing up. Do you feel like themes have changed in terms of songwriting for children now? And what kind of things are you drawn to?
Yeah, I think definitely. I would like to think so. In that, even in terms of like the legacy that my parents are creating and leaving, is that I think that's their main goal, is that you can learn so much through music, whether it's maths or music itself or learning about yourselves or relationships or whatever it might be. So I definitely think there's room for that. It's not that music has to be you go into a hall and you sing a hymn and then you leave and you forget about it. I think it's definitely important. And music is so powerful. Like, I think more than any of us are aware, even people that rely on it and do it for a job, I think it's definitely important to touch on those, especially for kids as well. I think I don't want to say the word neglected, but it wasn't a thing at least when I was in school. So yeah, I think the whole relationship thing and the whole, especially in today's society where there's so much pressure, it goes back to what we were saying about Instagram and the whole perfect thing versus TikTok. It's definitely increasingly important to be real and to be open and having a conversation. And I know it doesn't really seem like you're not going to start singing like, oh, I feel pressured to get 11 likes on Instagram, but that kind of feeling of I definitely think there needs to be more of a discussion. If music can be a platform for that, which I definitely believe it can, then why not?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually like, I think what you were saying earlier on, you're like, my music's not very cool. I mean, is there anything more cool than kind of giving people an outlet at such an early age and kind of like it's actually like it's quite a big responsibility actually to kind of be the first forays into like, I don't know, like a young mind's like first exploration of like wider thoughts, and or having at least like a group of people to then talk to about those thoughts and feelings and articulate it. Like, you might not necessarily be number one on BBC One Extra, but that's quite fleeting.
Hattie, we can't ruin Naomi's brand. She wants to be uncool, and we're just establishing how cool she actually is.
Should we just start again? Let's go.
Yeah, just delete. Just stop right now. I'll leave.
That's funny.
Leave. But I think you definitely do yourself a disservice. That's a really important role.
I think the responsibility thing is really interesting because I definitely think of it in terms of obviously themes, but even musically, and just not dumbing stuff down for kids. I think that kids are a lot more capable than we appreciate, especially musically. Sure. There's some Ariana Grande stuff that I can't sing, and there are 5-year-olds like walking along the street singing it. I'm like, okay, you can take this. Let's give you some interesting melodies. So I think in terms of having a responsibility for giving them a music education, that's something that's really important because I've had that through my parents, and I've kind of seen how that's been really, like, it's been great for me. So that's probably the most rewarding part of, I guess, the job, is when you've written the tracks, you've gone through amendments, you've stressed about it, you've sweated about it, but then you get in the studio and you watch, so we have like a kids choir who perform it, and you watch them sing it and you watch them smiling, and then you see them a year later and they're still singing it, and it's like, I love my job. This is great.
That's nice.
Yeah,
job satisfaction.
It's such an interesting debate as well about the melodies of Ariana Grande and things like that, because it's so true. Most kids, like, I work in early years, and 0 to 5-year-olds, they are singing Drake.
Who's not though?
Hattie's just like promoting Drake, like she's been paid, so what do you expect?
I love that.
But they are, and it's true, because in education we have such an emphasis on classical music and classical education. The grade system that are respected, usually, whatever that even means, they're classically based. Maybe you might have the odd musical, but actually what you can learn from kind of more unconventional learning and internalizing through rhythm you can get from pop music, like, because you can dance to pop music. And I say pop music, you know, but popular music, anything that's not necessarily classical, but having that mix is so important. And it's so great to hear that you incorporate that kind of thing into your writing, because that is contemporary, isn't it? It's relevant. I wonder, when you were speaking about getting in the studio like once a week with your parents and things like that, that's interesting, because we speak to some people who kind of just, they don't have that same kind of structure with their songwriting. You have to write, say, like once a week. How is it having to sort of, does it ever feel like you're forcing that creativity? Do you have a way that you monitor that or encourage the creative juices to flow? Is it ever really difficult to force that out?
I think I can see why that would be such a problem for a lot of people. I'm not, though I wish I was, one of those people that woke up with symphonies or amazing song ideas in their head. For me, it is quite a conscious thing. I get the odd lyric idea here and there and jot it down, but mainly it's, right, sit down at the piano and kind of see what happens. And I think the reason I enjoy that is that there's an excitement in that. There's a, like, who knows what's going to happen kind of thing, which is kind of, unless you're writing to a brief and you're 2 weeks behind, there's excitement in that, and it's something that's enjoyable rather than stressful. So I think I definitely, we kind of said, we used to joke about, like, right, bums on seats 2 days a week, let's go. And it just works. I think in terms of killing the creativity process, it's definitely a numbers game in that there are 3 of us. So there's 3 times as chance that hopefully something will happen. But on that second day, especially if it's back to back, second day in the studio when you've had your lunch and the coffee's kind of worn off, that's where it's like, okay. At that point, it's like, right, let's go for a walk and let's get some air. And I think because that's what my parents have been doing it for so long, they're very aware when it's like, right, we've hit that point now. Let's go and like get a cup of tea and come back. And so I think consistency, especially for me, I'm quite like, I like things organized. I'm going to schedule everything in, which is an awful career choice because it's so unknown and so unstable. Like, I want something more rigid. I need to be in a 9 to 5 really. But the idea of like, right, I know I'm going to write on this day. I know I'm going to write on this day. It's nice to have that structure for me. I think I don't worry about, but what if I don't write anything this year? Because last year ended up being way more songs than I've ever even like attempted before, just from consistency and showing up. And they're not all going to be good. I think the thing that I'm learning is, I think it was Ed Sheeran that said, I've mentioned him way too much. I promise I listened to other stuff. I've mentioned him way too much today. He said something like 1 in 100 songs will be good. And he used to write like 4 or 5 a day. And then it's a numbers game, right? I used to joke about it being similar to dating, and like the more guys you date, you'll find the right one. You're gonna get a good one in every. Hopefully, it's better than 1 in every 10, but you know, hopefully,
exactly.
So numbers game. I think, they weren't all my finest songs, but I don't think anyone just boshes out hit after hit after hit after. Well, I like to think not, but I hope
I'm
not.
sure there's someone, but I think they're quite few and far between. Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
It's funny because it's not the first time that a dating analogy has been used. I think somebody mentioned Tinder and finding the right collaborations through Tinder, like, as well. Like, you're so right. I like that. I like that dating thing.
Love that.
That'll go on the audiogram.
That's so funny.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was also gonna say, oh no, it's completely gone, so I'm gonna go for my other things. We'll come back. In terms of like writing to a brief with your work, like what do you mean by that? What does it look like? If somebody's listening and they're like, oh, this is actually something I really want to pursue, the behind the scenes songwriter, but maybe more, for like younger people. Yeah. What is a brief? What can people expect?
I think it can really vary, and I think because I'm in quite a niche area at the minute of doing a lot of stuff for schools or looking at musical theatre stuff, it really can vary from literally write a song about a tractor, or if you're looking at the more pop or sync or commercial side of things, it can be as vague as like, oh, we want a poppy kind of song, here are 3 tracks that sound kind of similar to what you want, off you go. And that's all you get. And I think the reason that I prefer the first is that it's more specific, and I know I'm going to be closer to the mark, if that makes sense. It's that whole, like, I like to be organised. I like to know what's happening every second of every day. I like to know exactly what you want me to write. So, which is maybe why I'm not perhaps pursuing that whole pop sync thing so much. But in terms of the briefs that I'll get, normally they're projects. So recently we've just done like a Key Stage 2 project. So looking at the curriculum of schools and thinking, okay, how can we bring music into this? What can we what can we do to mix it up, I guess. So I think because of the nature of working with my parents on a lot of this stuff, they have authority within their field whereby they can change a brief if they want to. And I kind of get the benefits of that. I'm like, okay, I'll go along with that. That's fine. Works for me. So I definitely have it easy in terms of briefs. But I think I prefer writing to them, but just because it's clear cut and it's okay. I know what I'm doing today. I know what the goal is. Let's go.
Rather than like the destination.
Yeah, exactly that. And again, that I feel like it's bad to expect that within the music industry, and like no one knows. I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow, let alone in 5 years' time, and that scares the hell out of me. But if it's little things like, okay, I've got an exact brief that's like, okay, I can do this. I can one thing at a time, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. But so you have to do a lot of research as well. So you'll look at like the curriculum and what's going on. It's not just like 10-year-olds want to talk about what like TikTok or whatever, and they're like, no, like, we really need to do something about science. I'm like, no, you actually have to do research and work. It's not like literally all fun and games.
Yeah, I mean, research is done. I'd be lying if I said it was something that I personally do and sit down and scan through the curriculum and stuff. There's a whole team of people that is their role. So mostly we'll get like an A4 call sheet with lots of different topics, the area of a triangle, how to work out this and that, which I didn't know how to do. So writing these tracks about like, add it up and divide by 2. This is great. I love my maths has come on like tenfold in the last couple of months. So yeah, no, research-wise, I think the musicals is definitely more where the research is involved, which is really enjoyable actually. If it's something like watching a film and taking some nice quotes and stuff like that, don't mind kicking back with some popcorn and watching a film.
I really didn't consider that that's what people would have to do, but now I feel really dense for thinking that you just wouldn't do that.
I kind of think there's an element to school musicals that are really, really quirky, or at least they were at my school. We just used to do the most random stuff. I remember we had a school musical called Gel, and it was meant to be a mix between Grease and Hairspray.
That's amazing. That's so good.
And it was like, I remember the actions. See, these things stick with you, internalizing the rhythm.
They do. They do.
It was like, gel, you need gel to smell. So swell if you want to make a date. Don't hesitate, be grateful that you got gel. Gel, gel, you ain't nothing without gel. That was it.
I mean, it's so true.
And it just uses fragments of all different genres and all different musicals and all, like, it's got references everywhere, and it's so strange. But I love how for school musical writing, it is quite a niche, and you can kind of do whatever you want, like, within reason. But
Yeah, I definitely think you've got more poetic license.
I was thinking the whole time that we've been having this wonderful conversation about school songs and musicals and things like that. It was quite different from when we were introducing you, because I was saying how through your blurb how, you know, your song is pretty much music to cry to. How is it writing depressing music to cry to versus the complete opposite end of probably, widely speaking, happy songs, like actual happy songs? Is it harder to write happy or sad songs as well?
Oh, that's tough.
Oh, good point. Good question.
I definitely think I don't want the takeaway from this is that I write sad songs for kids. That's definitely not what I'm going for. So I kind of see like 2 branches to my writing. I think the Disney thing you cross over, because obviously you get those ballads within Disney where it's like, why is this happening to me? Blah, blah, blah. I think the sad stuff, the more, maybe more melodic stuff is from when I started writing for myself. I kind of made the decision, right, I don't want to be an artist, but I don't want to just write about tractors, you know? So started writing for my own stuff. And I think the reason that it's not something that I've necessarily pursued so much is that it's really hard in terms of finding a market for that. I think more recently with like Lewis Capaldi and these ballads, part of me is like, you're always going to have that power ballad somewhere in the charts. You look through the top 40, there's going to be one somewhere, which is really encouraging. But I think in terms of my influences, and again, it comes back to listening to the same music. I've grown up on like a lot of John Mayer, Jamie Cullum, like really melodic stuff, and like to an extent power ballad, emotive stuff. which is great. But the number of times I've been told like, oh yeah, you're 20 years too late, like you're out of date and all this stuff. Which is I feel like everyone gets 1,000 no's before they get one yes, so it's totally fine. But I think that's why there's such a distinction, is that it's more poppy, John Mayer stuff / my own stuff. I look back at my lyric book and you can see exactly what's going on in my life depending on how depressing the lyric ideas are. Versus I kind of see it as a whole separate bubble to like the kids stuff. And again, it's writing to a brief against not writing to a brief. So there's kind of separation. It's not necessarily a conscious separation. In terms of preferring happy or sad songs, I think my favourite is kind of this weird combination of the two. So we've just finished a musical lately and it's got, I want to say what it is, but I feel like it's out next year, so you're going to have to wait a year. But we just finished writing it, and the end is like the two main characters come back together and everything's great, and it's like kind of a hopeful, or I guess from despair comes, oh yay, it's that happy ending. And I feel like it's emotional, i.e. you get the kind of crying by the window, you've got that emotive feeling without it being a simple song about triangles. But then you've also got it's happy and it's not, kids can sing it without crying, you know? Yeah. So that's kind of, and even when I look back at songs that I love, if you look at Annie, what is it? Maybe? I think it's called Maybe Far Away. That, defo, please auto-tune that. That song is like that classic, like hopeful, it's so dramatic and I guess that's why I say it's cheesy, but it gets me right in the feels. So I guess that's like the in between the two, I guess.
Definitely. I like that. It reminds me of like Inside Out. When you can't have one without the other, they kind of work together.
Yeah.
And I was thinking whilst you were saying that, you've mentioned a few times that you decided like not to be the artist and kind of do this more behind the scenes role. And I'd like to know if there's anything that pushed you towards that, or why is it that like you didn't consider it before and then you did? Just because I think I recently did a talk to students about working in the music industry. I did this whole presentation about working on this side of the music industry, so it's like working alongside artists rather than being an artist. And I just wondered if you maybe had the same kind of thoughts as me.
I think it's so hard. I think because firstly I didn't know that there was, I thought Katy Perry writes all her own songs, right? She's a writer and an artist, let's do that. I think it's a tough one. Part of being a songwriter, the part that I love is that I can write stuff for kids and then I can write stuff for TV or for charities or whatever it is. And you're not stuck in this one lane of, right, I've told the world I'm this artist who does this stuff and I have to stay in that lane. So I think partly it's that. I think some of it is a confidence thing, and that I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't wait to gig. I love gigging. I hate gigging. Honestly, it's the worst. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I think I'm my own worst critic to an extent that it's not worth the ag of me overthinking every note and line that went down. So I think part of it is that. Also, I don't want to say it's easy to go into in terms of the personality that I think that probably you have to have in terms of being an artist and really pushing yourself. I think I need like a hype man to like do that for me, you know? But yeah, I think the versatility of being a writer and being able to work with loads of different people is probably the main reason that it's like, okay, this is the path that I'm going to go down.
Yeah, I think it's also like a path that, as you said, like people just don't really know about it or consider it. Yeah. Or I think maybe you're like, oh, if I'm not the artist, I'm the manager.
Yeah.
But there's actually a whole other world of jobs. I mean, for me, I really like it because I still have my anonymity.
Yes.
You know, when you like, I don't know, in lockdown, it's like, I'm just not going to wear makeup for weeks on end and just go to the shop to buy milk and tracksuits.
Absolutely.
You can't do that if you are Katy Perry. Yeah. Well, you can, but you will be circled in like one of those terrible magazines. So it's nice to not have to deal with that. I just couldn't do it.
Honestly, I think like, I was thinking about it today. On Instagram, I kind of have a work Instagram, if you like, where I'm putting myself forward as a songwriter. And I feel pressure with that. And I'm like nowhere near where I want to be in terms of like the height of my career or even halfway there. I don't even feel like I'm at the halfway point. So I think they must be really struggling. I think it's so hard. And it's just like such a sign of today's times of like, there's just so much pressure behind looking a certain way and coming across like you know what you're doing, which I definitely don't think I've ever felt like I know what I'm doing, which I kind of don't mind, you know. I feel like it's such an unspoken thing of like, well, we're just winging it and hopefully it works out. So yeah, another great thing if I'm feeling right now that it's like, oh no, what am I going to post today? Being an artist is like, yeah, couldn't do it.
Totally agree. What do you think is the halfway point of your career, or what do you want to be the sort of, not end point, but
Yeah.
I don't know,
the height,
the height. But I guess equally, as you move towards that, you realize that the height changes, doesn't
Oh,
it?
big
But right
time.
now, what do you?
Yeah, that's tough. I think because the world of theatre just right now is not a thing, it feels like a really dumb idea to be like, yeah, I want a show on the West End. But if we're dreaming without kind of thinking about any kind of realistic...
there's no obstacles in
this
world.
All right, well then, let's go ham. Theatre, a show on the West End would be unreal. I think that's always been a dream, and I managed to sidestep the fact that I nerdily played cello for like 10 years. That's kind of where my musical training came from. Maybe that's why I think I'm not cool, is that I played cello. Anyway,
I think it's very, very cool.
Yeah. But having had the whole orchestral background and like soundtracks and all that stuff, I do think that that's such a nice compromise between like the Disney thing and the classical thing and the pop thing, is that musical theatre kind of sits nicely in the middle of that. Equally, I'd absolutely love to be the guys that wrote the soundtrack to Frozen. Also, they're husband and wife. What a power couple. Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Find me a songwriter that wants to marry me and write the next Frozen, then I'm down. That's definitely the goal. So yeah, I think to be... When you say it like that, it sounds so... It's not even a success thing that I'm after. I think what comes with that is the influence that your songs have on masses of people, and that's the goal. I think when you break it down, and I've heard other people say this on your podcast, is like, when you break it down, all it comes down to is me writing a song, someone else, or hopefully more than one other person hearing it and being like, okay, this resonates with me, this makes me feel good, this whatever. And that they can almost interpret it as their own. And I think that's such a powerful thing, to think that I could do, or anyone could do that en masse, is like, perfect, let's go.
Amazing.
I think that's a perfect answer.
I wondered, like, the whole time we've been talking, it's felt like your life revolves around music, and it's in your family's blood, you know, it's all there. And I guess arts in general. You said that sometimes you go for a walk or have a cup of tea when you feel like you need a little break from it. Do you have any other kind of hobbies that you do to kind of take you away from that? Because I think it can often feel like, oh my goodness, if I didn't have music, what would I have? As a lot of musicians feel like that. So yeah, what else do you kind of do to keep you sane?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's funny. People are like, oh yeah, and I've had this kind of, it's an observation that gets made quite a lot. Like, oh, you do so much music. And the awkward English girl inside of me always responds like, oh yeah, it's because I'm not good at anything else. It's all I can do. But it's funny because it honestly is like all I do. But in terms of stress and other stuff, I think mental well-being, the go-to is exercise for me. I'm a little bit, I want to say gym bunny, but gym rat. With the amount that I sweat in the gym rat is definitely more accurate. So yeah, things like that. I think I'm quite outdoorsy. The more I grow up, the less I'm like, I don't like the outside. I'm more like, okay, nature is, I think because of the emotional impact that it has on me, just being outside, and especially where I live, right by the sea, kind of by the South Downs, super, super fortunate for that. But yeah, increasingly getting out, getting walks, getting some headspace, and one can influence the other in terms of, it sounds quite cliche, but getting some ideas where you're out and about and you're not thinking about music, sometimes that's when it hits you most. Probably there's because a lack of pressure or a lack of feeling like, right, okay, I have to come up with something. It catches you off guard. So yeah, getting out, I think, like anyone else, spending time with family and friends. But again, because of the nature of my family, it very much does revolve around music.
Wonderful.
So yeah. Is that, I've made my life sound so bland?
No, you haven't. I was thinking there's one part of your bio that we didn't talk about, and I wondered if your love, or at least your enjoyment of exercise, is that how your work with Sport Relief came about, or which one started?
Yeah, funny connection. No, I wish. That would be, I'd like to think that, I wish I looked good enough in the gym that someone from Sport Relief came up like, yeah, do you wanna write a song? It's actually a connection that my parents have had. They've done comic relief songs forever, and it's actually such a family affair because my eldest brother Sam and his wife, who I mentioned earlier, Chloe, they shot the video for the Sport Relief campaign, and they've worked with Comic Relief since. There are videos of me on YouTube. Don't look this up, but there are videos of me on YouTube as a 6-year-old. Yeah, great. As a 6-year-old, or like maybe a little bit older, singing along to this Comic Relief track, and I remember feeling so annoyed because being the writer's kid, you can't get you can't be favoritized. Is that a word? Good. You know what I'm going for, right? So I'm sat in the corner of this video with headphones that don't work, so I'm like holding one can onto my ear and the other one's like, and honestly, I have a face like a slapped ass. I was not happy, and that's like got a couple of 100,000 views for the Sport Relief official page. But that's not what I'm referring to in my bio. So it was last year. It's from my a parent connection, and they were like, we've been working together for a while, kind of established writing. So yeah, it was kind of fun. It was, again, that's such a prime example of like influencing kids with music in a way that you wouldn't think, and combining kind of sport and exercise and making it fun. And it's totally the opposite of sit by the window and watch the rain track. It's such a feel good, like raising money, good cause, getting exercise. It was pretty wholesome. That's probably the most wholesome moment of my career so far.
Are you keeping on repeat this week? Is it still, are you still a creature of habit at the moment? Have you found anything new in lockdown, or?
Yes, I found new stuff, but it's from old people that have brought out new stuff, kind of against the rules. This isn't even that new, but I think that it's very relevant to what we've been chatting to. The track is called I Guess I Just Feel Like, and it's John Mayer, and it's really honest. And I was at a gig of his a few years ago, back when that was okay. And he said, like, this is one of the songs that made me no money. And I think it really did flop. But lyrically, it's just really beautiful. And it's kind of chatting about the social media world that we live in. And no one's really honest. And everyone's kind of lying to make it through. And it sounds really depressing when I say the lyrics. But it's great. I think you like it.
I think that's perfect. That's very good. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, listening to old tracks. We've got, like, a group work playlist to kind of motivate us, and I think people are really expecting to put us like brand new like UK artists on. Sometimes I do, but a lot of time I'm like banging out like an old track that I'm like, this
tried
is
and
so
tested.
Good. Yeah,
nice.
Exactly. It's had like 30 years to kind of simmer and be a really cool thing.
Yeah,
obviously,
those are the good ones.
Yeah, John Mayer's obviously not 30 years simmering, but a long time.
Nearly. I feel like he's old. I definitely fancy him way too much for how old he is.
He's definitely been around longer than we think. I kind of feel that way about someone like Jamie Cullum that you mentioned earlier on. I was like, I forget, he's been a huge pinnacle of sort of the UK jazz scene for at least like, I don't know, like 20 years.
Yeah, it's
like,
mad.
but it doesn't seem that way. Maybe because he also looks so young. I don't know, but
yeah, it's true. That is very true.
Seems like a nice guy. I used to really like his radio
He'd definitely
show.
be on the whole like, who could you have dinner with? Who would you want to meet? He'd be up there in the top 5.
Who would you want to have dinner with?
Oh gosh, Jamie. If it was like let's say a dinner party for 3, Jamie Cullum would be up there. I think Lin-Manuel Miranda also would be up there. And then I want to go someone non-musical because I think that'd be pretty cruel to alienate them completely and for them to have no idea what we're talking about. Who would be cool? The Queen? That would be cool.
I was really expecting you to say like Dolly Parton or something like that. The queen of songwriting.
Yeah, the Queen of Songwriting. That's funny. Is she the Queen of Songwriting? Have I missed? I
think she is. I love her.
Yeah. All right, I'll be putting that on straight after this.
If you like podcasts, actually, there is Dolly Parton's America, which is like a sort of eight-part series. It is just phenomenal. It's so.
If you like songwriting as well, it's brilliant. It's one of the best podcasts out there. There's especially the Jolene episode. It's phenomenal.
It's amazing.
Really short. Amazing. Really,
it's
really
sounds
good.
Great. Right, I know what I'm doing tonight.
Definitely. It's kind of pitched as like America has so many problems, but they kind of come together for the love of Dolly Parton. Basically.
Amazing.
And it's phenomenal. That's definitely my recommendation.
Sounds great.
I don't know why we're doing recommendations. We never do that, but yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, you've got like trans folk coming together with cowboys from Texas, and like it is actually incredible how she brings so many people together. Yeah, love. That's a really good recommendation, actually. Naomi, thank you so much for speaking.
Yes,
thank you both. So nice to chat. Thanks for having me.
It's been
Anytime.
wonderful. And where can we find you on social media and keep up to date with your stuff?
I'm pretty bad with social media, but if I'm there, it's at Songs by Naomi on Instagram, really.
Not saying you turn my life back around. I've wasted too many moments to count. Not saying.
Well, thank you so much, Naomi.
Thank you, guys.
And we will see you next week. So keep it locked and keep it on repeat. Bye, everyone.
Woohoo!
Had you realised now it's a dream? Don't you know you're a dream? Had you realised? Hold out your arm, don't let me go. I'll get lost on my